Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. The purpose of this video is to give you a little bit of insight into yoga therapy. I'm going to discuss the philosophy behind it, how this ancient practice is meant to really support your body in releasing trauma, releasing emotional stress, and getting you functioning at your optimum. If you're not familiar with yoga therapy or yogic tradition and philosophy, let's take a moment to understand the yogis look at the body as having several layers. They call it the koshas. You have the physical body that we feel. And then above that is the energy body. And this is what the yogis say is the life force, right? This is what comes into the being and animates it. When we pass away, that's what leaves, right? The life force leaves, that energy body leaves. This is what hooks into the different chakra systems in the body. That's that energy. Beyond that is the mental body. The mental body is the aspect of us that takes in from the senses, right? What we see, feel, smell, taste, touch, that's our mind that takes that in and starts to interpret it. From there is the wisdom body. Now, the wisdom body holds our intellect, which is where, we house things, the things we learned in school, what we're just able to pull, from our own wisdom. And it also holds intuition. So this is where we can pull things from the divine, from source itself, is how the yogis look at it. Beyond the wisdom body is the bliss body. This is your closest space to beam back to source. You go to the bliss body when you meditate. You totally disidentify from the mind, from the thoughts, from all of these things that when we're conscious, we're aware of. And you get into this meditative state, you're actually experiencing the bliss body. In yoga therapy, we go into the physical body. The reason being, they view the body as a vessel, and it's a vessel for experience and energy to be moving through. And there can be good and bad and ups and downs, but it's really just all flowing through this vessel. But sometimes that tube gets blocked. Maybe because there was a trauma in childhood. Perhaps something occurred that was just too much, too soon, too fast. You couldn't process it, or you didn't have the bandwidth to at the time. And so you stopped. You literally shut that energy, that experience from moving through. And you just said, I can't. We typically then just push it down, right? And we say, no, I can just move on. I can get past this. And we push it away. And what the yogis say is that energy that was just wanting to move through the tube, that experience, now is stuck. And because it's been blocked and energy isn't created or destroyed, right, that energy keeps going and it keeps bumping up on that block and it turns in on itself. And eventually it forms into what they call a grunty, an energy knot. And that energy knot, it can be like an ice cube, right? Just frozen prana. It gets stuck in you somewhere. And so run this past yourself. See if this feels true. When you're stressed out, where do you feel it in your body? Every time I ask a client that, it's like within seconds, oh, I feel it in my shoulders. I feel it in my low back. I feel it in my stomach. Whatever it might be. I don't know where you feel it, but we have a place. And what the yogis say is that's the blocked energy. That's where you have an energetic blockage. Yoga therapy, the idea is let's go into the body, let's find where these blocks are, and let's just let that energy flow because that's all it wants to do. So in yoga therapy, unlike Western ways of doing things with psychotherapy, there's no mind analysis. In fact, we don't want the mind involved. The thing that created the problem can't solve the problem. So for the yogis, it's like put the mind aside. Let's let energy speak to us. Let's go into the body and say, look, what's unprocessed here? Let's allow its space to simply be felt. And when you feel it, it flows through. Now, it can be sometimes an intense emotion, or like literally you can feel energy, like a vibration that comes out. Think about when animals, like a cat. There's a stressful situation, right? Maybe my dog runs up to my cat and the cat gets freaked. And then once it realizes it's okay, it kind of like shakes. And that's just this dispersion of all the energy. We don't do that as humans. We block these, bad feelings from coming through and we just kind of push them down. How many times have you almost cried and it gets stuck here and you push it back down and you almost feel like this stuff happening in your throat versus when you just let yourself cry? Yeah, it's emotional when it happens, but it flows through and you feel good at the end. So with yoga therapy, the idea is let's just let this flow through. You might not notice anything as things start to flow. You just might notice some stretching or some pulsing or some tingling. Sometimes emotions are attached with it. It varies session to session, person to person. In a session, what we do is we come to your edge. We use yoga poses. Now, if it's a virtual session or you don't want touch, we'll do it up against a wall and we use props and things to support you. And basically, we get into these yoga postures that work the different chakras. Typically, we start at the bottom because there's a lot of control and safety and fear that lives in our bottom chakras. And as humans, a lot of us have that. So we usually start there with allowing that to be released. And then as we go through sessions together and work through, we'll work up the whole energy body and we'll move up into those chakras to open things more. So you'll find your edge, which is the point where, you first start to feel something that maybe doesn't feel great. Like you're noticing, okay, I'm stretching a little, like this isn't a normal space for me to be in. You don't want to push past that and go, oh, well, look how much I can do. Then you blow by the edge. If you were stressing, if you're in your mind, if you're gripping, like you're past your edge, you just want to, when you first start to feel sensation, and then, as the facilitator, as the therapist, I will walk you through just being with that edge, with that sensation. And we learn to get comfortable with the discomfort. And you'll be amazed that once you start to feel it, it just starts to move. It's fascinating. A lot of times it moves in and up because that's the Sushumna, the energy channel. We also talk a lot about falling out breaths. So the breath lets the body know that it's safe. And so in a falling out breath, you inhale through the nose, and it's a deep belly exhalation. So you'll hear me cue often, do a falling out breath here, do a falling out breath here. Now, if we're doing a private session in person, I will actually be helping you position you into poses and help moving you, in and out of an edge. And it's beautiful to be held in that space. This is a very nurturing space. It's time for you to allow yourself to feel and release. And truly, this is soul level work. Now, at some points, usually towards the end, after we've cultivated and gotten into the body and we're feeling, we use some techniques. It's called energetic diffusion technique, the technique of focusing, the technique of polarity integration, which are basically ways that we get into the subconscious, we get into the body, we get into this energy, and it actually speaks to us. And, we're able to see what is it needing, how would it feel complete? What are we not hearing that it's asking of us? And it's amazing. Like, blows my mind every time what can come out of this. Even if you think there's no way that could happen to me, I promise. It will also happen for you. This ancient wisdom, they really were able to discover a lot about our bodies, about how it works, about, this predicament of being human and all the things we go through. So that's a little bit about yoga therapy. You are coming in for a session. I look forward to it. Please bring your questions with you. Make sure you fill out your intake form so I'm aware of what's going on. If you're curious about a session, you can comment on this video or you can just send me an email directly at discoverintention@gmail.com. Discoverintention@gmail.com. And Jai Bhagwan, which means victory to the spirit.